Hi, everyone. This is Jay Newman with a sprint update for the sprint here ending April 29th, 2020. This is a partnership sprint update for DoubleGDP. Um, uh, if you think about partnerships, right, Nolan, DoubleGDP CEO, and I have been having some conversations in this last sprint about what is the real contribution to DoubleGDP's growth that partnerships should have, right, at the current stage that we're at. And me personally, I've had a role that has sort of evolved with DoubleGDP as we kind of like built out this business. Both from like helping to kind of like set it up and set all the structures around what the business was going to be in the front end, just to recruiting in the middle end, to working with kind of like our very first customer kind of in the third part of it. And then now what Nolan has really done is he's gone out and built a fantastic product engineering and customer success team to really work with our first customer. That team is sort of like off and running, really building software for that customer at Nkwashi in Zambia, and helping to make sure that the software really matches up with those customer needs. And so I think what Nolan and I have really landed on is that the objective for partnerships, like my role here in the next phase of growth, is really about three things. The first thing is one part that like we've kind of like opportunistically been focused on for the entire time, and that's just all about building new relationships, meeting new people who are kind of like the real estate developers and the private community builders and new community builders who kind of like make our whole customer base kind of roll. But also some of the ecosystem around those new cities that we work for, right? The investors, the governmental agencies who are kind of like supporting that set, the government officials, and just more broadly some of the connectors, right? The VCs and all that kind of stuff who are supporting the growth of new cities and the technology for them. So that part of partnerships continues to be kind of like an opportunistic goal for us. It's kind of the type of thing that we focus on while the rest of the engine for DoubleGDP is sort of off and rolling. The next really key goal that Nolan and I landed on for partnerships for the next, let's call it 6 months, is to prove that the model for DoubleGDP, right, the software approach that we're taking, and the market opportunity that we think is really big, to prove that model extends beyond our first customer, beyond Nkwashi, and to really show that the solutions that we are choosing, the approach that we're taking to our technology, has a broader set of needs. And so we're going to turn solving that problem into a set of projects over the course of the next couple of months. Probably be like kind of like six week long projects where I'm going to work with Nolan and the team to really prove out the demand and market opportunity for DoubleGDP beyond Nkwashi. And the way that we're going to do that was we're going to focus those projects really specifically on key potential future customers, right? So we're going to basically spend, for instance, we may spend the next 6 weeks working with one future potential customer just to do the things that are basically about customer discovery through like the interviews with the senior leadership team and kind of like future residents of that city, to make sure that we really understand like how for instance, the operations in that country might be similar or different to the ones that are in Zambia. And then also really kind of like understanding the similarities and differences in the business models between a new city that's operating in a different country, how that might be both aligned or in really important ways different from what we're seeing at Nkwashi for Zambia. And so really kind of like evaluating what would be the product plan, like the customer-driven product plan that like we can begin to work on with that specific future customer, so that we're kind of like extending the DoubleGDP model beyond our first kind of like really major folks that we're working with. And then the third key goal for partnerships that we've kind of aligned on is that we need to set the DoubleGDP business up for really scaling into another city, basically by the fourth quarter of this year. And we know that the overall hero metric for DoubleGDP is to increase weekly active user growth. And as we look at that, in the fourth quarter of this year and really in the first quarter of next year, the significant portion of that growth is gonna be from the outside of our current kind of like product development focus on the key customer that we're working with. And because we know the product and kind of like relationship development timeline is an extended one, partnerships' role is to begin kind of like setting up those new customers so that in the fourth quarter of this year we can really begin developing more and more with them and actually begin to see that weekly active user growth with those customers at the tail end of this year. So that's that's a little bit of this kind of like strategy update for partnerships that we wanted to provide during this particular sprint. Wanted to also just give a little bit of a glance into some of the other like kind of more opportunistic relationship building that we're doing because I think it's always fun to kind of track along with that. So I'm going to just share my screen here. Personally, I'm going to be joining the Startup Societies Foundation's virtual conference that they're hosting. This is scheduled for tomorrow and Friday. How do you build startup societies or like new communities in a post-COVID world? And basically their kind of like tagline for this thing is don't panic, build. Right now is the time. And there's a really lovely group of both folks that we know and new people that we can potentially meet who are joining for this kind of virtual conference. So our current customer from Nkwashi, Mia Musukotwane, and our very close partner from the Charter Cities Institute, Mark Lutter. They'll both be speaking at this event. But also talking about at this event are a number of other really kind of like thought leaders and community builders in the charter cities and kind of like new cities community space. And so that includes people like Wade Shefford, who wrote this great book called Ghost Cities. It includes Tim Draper of Draper and Associates, who's frequently talking about the role of the future of technology and blockchain in this space, and a number of others who were really just excited to hear how do these VCs, academics, community builders, and a handful of founders of new cities, how are they thinking about the opportunity to don't panic, build at exactly this time? Really good opportunity to just learn from what's on their mind and to build some new relationships as we go. So that'll be a nice opportunistic chance to meet some new people who are in this this broader community over the next couple of days. So that's it for my update here. Jay Newman, Partnerships, DoubleGDP, signing off.